Hey everybody, you may notice the fuel to power the device is right here. There is nothing magical, there is nothing weird about this. It runs on caffeine. Well, I'm running on caffeine and I'm building it, so indirectly it runs on caffeine. Since I started building this device, I've been purely running on caffeine. I've been very excited. Now, I've got the magnet assembly here. I took off my ring so I don't damage it, just so you know. Some might notice. I have the magnet assembly here, and I was advised by the company to go get nuts for the bolts. So I got nuts to match the bolts, and then I took off all the extra washers. I was also advised to assemble this on the shaft. That way the shaft can slide through easy. Whereas if you just try to put it together, it won't slide through very well. Now it should all neatly slip together, hopefully. I'm hoping that the plexiglass, yeah, it's sliding. It's stiff, because the fit of the plexiglass, I think, is very tight. Am I going through? Yeah, it's very tight going through the plexiglass. So I'm going to wiggle and wobble that and try to get it on. It's going to be slow and tedious because I don't want to touch anything and get that dirty. So I'm just going to, like I said, I'm going to be wiggling and wobbling that to get it onto the shaft and then slide it up to here. Then once that I've got it in place, actually I think I might have to loosen these set screws. I don't know if I'll have to loosen these to give it some wiggle room. It depends on how tight the tolerance is on that plexiglass inside, because it feels very stiff in there right now. I've just entered the plexiglass and it's very, very stiff. So we'll see how it goes, whether I have to sand it lightly or not. But I'll get that on there and I'll be right back to you. I actually just completely took off this hub. I got it through the plexiglass, but I took this off entirely to make this easier. I really don't want to touch this, is the thing. The more I touch it, the more I've got to clean it later. But it suddenly got very stiff at this point. I got it on to that point, but now it got really, really stiff. There's nothing, shouldn't be any problem here. It's just the two plexiglass discs give me trouble now. So I'm going to struggle with that and get it on there, and I'm going to be right back. Alright guys, I got it on there. I used a little bit of vegetable oil, to be honest, on the shaft and on the inside of the rotor assembly, inside the acrylic, and was able to slip it in place. Now I never tightened these completely, these screws, before. I'm going around and tightening them now. The two halves should have no gap in between when you're done. It's so awkward working them around magnets, so work carefully when you do, because they will pull your screwdriver in on them, and you could scratch your acrylic. Ah, there, perfect example. Pulled it right in on me. There's a slight gap on this spot, and I don't know why. Ah, come on. I don't know why there's a gap on this. Ay! Hey, come on. Yeah, there's a tiny gap right there I'm trying to close up. Okay. And then spin it, and it'll tighten the next and the next all the way around. And then I might have to put some more oil in the shaft in order to be able to slide that all the way in place. How I'm going to tighten those set screws, I don't know. I'm going to have to find a tool or fashion a tool to get down in there past the magnets. I did readjust, and I was able to get the set screws in between magnets. I took my time and I analyzed it, and I managed to get that, so that's a good thing. Okay, now I'm putting in the nuts and bolts. I am using one lock washer, one normal washer, and feeding it through. And then there's room for a nut on the end, which I had to source myself. I don't think there was one included in the kit. Not that I could find anyway. Now, the very tricky thing of trying to get this tightened. So I try to hold my hand over a magnet to keep the thing from being drawn in. Yeah, I'm going to need 3 hands for this until that set screw gets tight. Yeah, this is going to be interesting, because I'm going to have to put something here. I'm going to have to put a cushioning something here. Alright, let me think about this a minute, because I need to stop the wrench from being slammed against the magnet, which will scratch the acrylic. But I need both hands free in order to tighten both ends of this. So I'll be back in a minute. I'll figure something out. Alright guys, I'm just working freehand very carefully, but it is awkward because those magnets are powerful. They have to come in and not allow that wrench to get drawn in. I have to keep this wrench at an angle. I don't know if you can see, and I'm not going to worry about the camera. I'm more worried about not scratching this. So I'm keeping my wrench in at an angle, which gives me less torque on the nut and a less, not as good a seat on that nut, but it allows me to keep that from being sucked in. I carefully put that down, 2 hands, pull it away. I tried to do it one-handed earlier and it sucked it right in on me. Two hands, come in at an angle, get that on there. Alright, come up in here at an angle. These are very strong magnets. Now I'm going to do the final tightening on each and hope that I can still slide that along the shaft. I may need some oil. No, I'm just being so careful because this is acrylic and I just don't want to scratch it. That's why I'm being so very cautious and slow with this. Because believe me, they are sucking that wrench in on you. Okay, I'm just going to go all around one more time and give them all a good tightening down. Alright, I had to take off the timing wheel on the back and I had to slide the shaft through. I'm going to have to, I had to loosen the bolts. I'm not sure how I'm going to do this because I have to get this in place find out where in the shaft it's going to sit, and then slide the shaft out of the bearing, tighten the bolts, put it back in place, and then I can put the timing wheel on. This side's going to be fine, but when I get the second half on, it's going to be tricky because it's really, really stiff. I just had to loosen all those bolts. There was no other way to go about it. Once I tightened it, it was tight on that shaft to where I wasn't going to move it at all anymore. Now I'm definitely going to have to figure out where this is going to end up. I'm eyeing it up here. Trash on my tablecloth. No. What do I got? Oh, I see the hub hits the bearing. Okay. Alright, well that's it. Alright, that's where it sits. Alright guys, I'm going to make sure I got my adjustments right before I proceed. Hey guys, I had to get a long extension to get the set screws on the hub in there. It was a tedious process because it kept pulling the driver out of my hand. But I got it. Now I'm tightening these bolts in place. And this is not going to move at all. For assembly, it is helping to use some oil on the shaft to help slide the pieces into place. Especially the rotor assembly, the acrylic part itself was giving me some trouble. And all this assembled together was really giving me some trouble. So I'm so happy that the company told me to tighten it in place. Assemble it onto the shaft and then tighten it in place. Otherwise I don't think I'd have this done. I'd still be trying to figure out how to slide it in. I'd have figured it out eventually, I guess, but that was a good tip. So I'm just making sure everything's tight here. So as soon as I get this into place, I've got to do the heat shrink tubing, shrinking the tubing on the other coil set, and then we'll be good to go. Let's make sure I didn't leave any fingerprints, because once that's in there, it's not going anywhere anymore. A lot of polishing, but you know, it's really worthwhile, seriously. It's really going to be pretty. And I'm considering, the company actually has, their demonstration model has some neon lights inside. And I'm seriously thinking, because acrylic really shows the light. If you put the light on the edge, like on the edge of the acrylic, every single cutout will show the light. It almost amplifies it in a way. Almost looks like an amplified effect. But anyway, you'll see what I mean when I'm done. So I figure I'll probably have an LED running off this at one time or another, just for looks. With the magnets, you gotta act so careful and slow with everything. Alright, now I'm going to put that back through the bearing. Slipped it all the way back into position, all the way through. Okay, now that's in place. Okay, now I will put some, I don't want that hanging, all that pressure on there. I'm going to put some more feet on here. Screw these in and act as feet and keep some of that angular pressure off that. Just for now. And I'm going to finish prepping the other coil side and polishing it. And then I'll be back in a couple minutes when I'm ready with that. I gotta get the soldering iron going and get the heat shrink tubing going on that. So we'll be back in a few minutes. I'm gonna wash my hands too. I've got aluminum and metal, sort of a gray film. I don't want to be touching this thing with that gray film on my hands. Alright guys, now I'm putting on the nuts. And then I will be assembling the other stator half. I'm not quite sure where that's going to be. I think I'm going to come in further, see where that, something's going to hit something, I think. I'll figure this out in a minute here. I'm going to put the nuts on. It's a pretty fail-safe design. Things pretty much come together. Hey guys, I'm checking continuity. I just stripped off all the ends on here before I go ahead and assemble this whole device and get too far. I have a multimeter with it set on the audible setting, so that when you short the leads together or have a connection, you hear a sound. It's great for troubleshooting. So you just go on 2 leads of any coil and you can tell if you have a connection. This is just to confirm, before I go any farther, that I have all 6 of my coils soldered properly, and then I can continue on with the assembly of the device. Okay? Alright, so that's all good. Now I'm going to do the same with the other one. Strip all the end wires, make sure I have good connection, and then I'll proceed with the assembly of this motor. It would be a waste of time to put it all together and then check. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to strip off these ends and then test it and then polish the thing up. I've already polished that half with my microfiber cloth. Oops, I dropped that. I try to work neat, especially in the house. So I'll continue on and finish all them. Alright, I'm going to put the other stator half in place. Let me see, I'm going to have to, I could almost use a second hand here sometimes. I have this sitting on it's sitting down on this hub half to keep it in an upright position. Now I know I make it look awkward, and I'm sure it's not as awkward as I make it look, because I'm trying to keep this clean as I work. The fewer fingerprints and dirt on it, the better off everything is in the end. And I think before I try to run this, I'm going to put on the other bearing plate so that there's no weight hanging on the end of this. Interesting. Why doesn't that line up? That's odd. Get down there. There we go. Now it's starting to go. It wants to go on unevenly sometimes, which is awkward. There we go. A little bit at a time, bit by bit. Now I've got to figure out where you want the coils to be the same distance apart. So now it's time to start adjusting some screws and get that into place. Alright. I'm going to try to get that. I'm going to measure that. I'll find something that sticks in here in this gap and make sure that's the same gap, so that this is all even. And I've got to straighten it up. So I'm going to put on the other end of this for support. I'm going to go get the other bearing section. Alright, there's the other bearing plate. And I've only peeled away the plastic around this back side where the bearing presses in. The paper, protective paper. Now, I'm going to put the bearing in, and then I'm going to press it in place in the unique way that I developed a little while ago, the other day. I don't really want to touch anything much with my fingers because they're oily. Alright, now I'm going to set that on the floor. I'm going to press it down with my knees till it's in place. I'm going to see if I can show you. Felix, you're right directly in the way. I want equal pressure on this. Maybe I can just push with my hands, I'm not sure. This is what I did before. Okay. Equal pressure all the way around. It's not really good on your knees, I guess. Make sure that's firmly seated. This is not, you know, the most professional manner, but, you know, I don't have a press, a bench press, and there we got it. It's done. Now, I'm putting on the rest of the framing so that this motor has something to stand on and take the strain off the shaft, because it's just hanging there by its own weight right now, and I don't want to have that strain on there. So I'm taking the rest of the pieces here and assembling them. Okay, I'm just putting in the screws now. I'm not even going to torque them down. I just want to get this thing somewhat held together to keep it from, well, to keep the pressure off that shaft, off this back bearing. And this will help me be able to move this around better. Now, I'm not putting on the lock washer either. I'm only putting on the metal washer and then the plastic washer. As I said, this is just hand tight, just to hold it in place for now. Protect that bearing. Really beautiful machine. It's really, the machine work on this is really, really good. High quality, super precision. Everything fits together really nicely. I mean, look at how smooth those go in without any wiggling or wobbling. They just go right in place. And those are all custom machine parts. Those aluminum frame bolts. Those are custom machined. Alright. Got some more oil on my hands. I'm going to have to wash my hands again. So one thing working with this is I really want to keep myself clean as I go. Alright, I want to get the screws to mount on the electrical plate, and I'm going to rework this plate. They showed it in the diagram actually going on the opposite side, but I'm going based on the photos where it's on this side and in the videos. So I'm going to take off my solid state relay, turn it back upside down the other way so it's this way, and I'm going to put my plate back on because I want it to hang out. Yeah, I want it this way, and then I can put my amp meter down here rather than on the top. Either way, but I want to switch that around, so I'll be back in a couple minutes after I do that.